right, so now let's talk about the reference type variables. So the key thing with reference type variables that I think you need to understand, and you need to understand them, is reference type variables, they hold an address of a place in the computer's memory. And then Java does the work. It like knows that it knows like reference variables holds addresses, and it like does, yeah, it has its own mechanisms to convert those addresses to get the data that you want. You don't have to think about what's going on behind the scenes, but it's very important that you understand that it's actually holding an address. But but usually when you're using the variable, you don't think about the address. It's like it's going to be a value that you care about, but you know that behind the scenes it's holding an address. And there'll be an example like to kind of make sense of this and how the connection between an address and the actual value comes into play. But now we're just talking about at a high level. So now let's say that we created a reference variable called like reference variable A and then reference var B. What's really happening behind the scenes is reference var A holds an address. And in this example, like Java gave it the address to hold, you see here like x1, fd, f, whatever. And so, and what this is really saying, another thing you will hear in like the programming world is something points to. So reference var A points to this x1 fsd, which is a place in memory. So the variable holds the variable holds where in memory the data is stored, which also is saying that that variable points to that memory spot. Just different ways to describe what's going on. And then if we look at reference var B, what happened is Java gave it an address x1 acd, and so then that's also pointing. We can say that variable points to x1 acd, and Java is responsible for knowing what to do to get the data that we care about. And it has the address, but it's responsible for figuring out how to get the data that we care about. All right, we're going to go into more of the behaviors of how reference type variables work. And we're going to go to a situation that we looked at in our primitive type variable analysis. So let's say we have reference var A and we want to set it equal to reference var B. What's going to be happening behind the scenes is now reference var A is going to hold the address that reference var B holds. And you can see in our diagram, now reference var A now points to the same place in memory as reference var B has. That's what's happening. You can also see in the diagram the first place in memory, x1 fsdf. I have nothing points to this place in memory anymore, and I have garbage collection. So I have that description because reference var A used to point to that place in memory, which is x1 fsdf. When we set reference var A equal to reference var B, now nothing's pointing to x1 fsdf. And because nothing is pointing to it, so that place in memory, so Java created a place in memory and it's something is stored in there, but nothing's pointing to it. So that place in memory that Java created, you can say it's how do I put it? It's space that we can't access, right? And if we only have a limited number of space in our memory and we're using up space that we can't access, that doesn't help us. So you can say it's a waste of space. So Java has this process called garbage collection where it looks at the different places in memory and it finds what addresses don't have pointers to it. And if it doesn't have pointers to it, that means it can't be used. So it's actually in our interest as somebody who's trying to develop something and have the most space as possible for Java to